Vice President Kashim Shettima says the Presidential Initiative for Innovation, Policy Evaluation and Research will foster transparency, effective governance and sustainable development. Shettima stated this during a meeting with a delegation from the PIIPER's largest Center for Africa from the London School of Economics and Political Science and a pre-launch meeting of the Presidential Initiative for Innovation, Policy Evaluation and Research in Abuja. He outlined the approaches to include encompassing data gathering, rigorous research, innovation integration, stakeholder engagement, and thorough documentation of government functions and decisions. Shettima singled out Professor David Luke, who he said has taken a bold step towards shared objectives with the unveiling of his work, How Africa Trades, describing it as an exciting chapter. Earlier, Dapo Oyewole, the leader of the delegation and senior special assistant to the president on international cooperation, said part of his job is to take the best of Nigeria to the world and attract the best of the world to Nigeria.
Especially on International Women's Day, we know women have been the engine of trade in Nigeria and in Africa. And for the Vice President to be able to host us to discuss this very important book about how Africa trades shows you that this is a government that is willing to get the right ideas locally and internationally to be able to drive the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President. There's no doubt whatsoever that this book is going to inform some of the policies that emerge. And I think we've already agreed on some concrete programs that we're going to take forward. As senior special assistant to Mr. President on international cooperation, this is our job, bringing the best ideas to Nigeria and of course taking the best ideas from Nigeria to the rest of the world.
Also, the director of the PIIPER's largest Center for Africa and professor of development anthropology in the London School of Economics and Political Science, Department of International Development, Tim Allen, said the goal of the initiative is to bring Africa at the core of what the London School of Science does.
I'm not a Nigerian specialist. I mean, I've worked all over Africa. What I would say, coming to Nigeria after being in other parts of Africa, the dynamism of the place, you can kind of feel it in the air. We had a fantastic time, traveling around in Lagos, going to the markets, talking to people, and you have a real sense of a country on the road forward. And as the Vice President said, the future of Africa is the future of Nigeria, and that's also true for my own continent. That if Africa is not sorted out, Africa is Europe's near abroad. We're in this together, and so that relationship, I think, is hugely significant moving forward. And the more collaboration we can do, the more engagement we can have. It would be fantastic for my own institution, and I'm very inspired by my trip to Nigeria.
Book editor Professor Luke said, "How Africa Trades is an invaluable open access resource for making sense of the continent's major trade challenges, including commodity dependence, competitiveness, and how African countries engage with often unconducive international trade rules that distort global markets."
Basically, the book talks about how trade could be made a much more powerful engine of growth, not only in Nigeria but throughout the African continent. No country has prospered without trade, and that's the point that the book makes. So the book also makes some proposals as to how we can negotiate better as Africans with our partners, whether in the US, in the European Union, China, emerging economies like India, Turkey. We have some very strong proposals on these sorts of issues. But mostly, now that we are seeing these economic reforms in Nigeria, there is a need for a clear trade strategy. And I think the book is very timely in responding to that need.